Okay, so I'm making a quick little guide. It's probably gonna be like 10-15 minutes on how to bateau and why to bateau on H-Kkohaku. Just know that none of this applies to C-Kkohaku because her bateau is completely different than H's. Got that out of the way? Let's start. Okay, so why even Battou Loop on H-Kkohaku? Her basic BMB is actually really easy. It does relatively good damage compared to the rest of the cast, and you get a very plus knockdown in the corner. However, if you are trying to play H-Kkohaku, the literal only reason to play H-Kkohaku over the other Kkohakus is 2-2A and Command Throw. And if you want to actually benefit from using either of them, you do need to Battou Loop, because the only way to get meterless Oki on H-Kkohaku is to either Bopper Loop, which is infinitely more difficult than Battou Loop, by the way, although it's safe. I'll explain that later, actually. But it's more difficult, one, and two, it doesn't work in the corner. You need to be mid-screen in order to Bopper Loop. Or you use... Actually, there is no other way to get meterless Oki. Unless you cut your combo like super short like this. But usually, if you cut your combo super short, the fact that you have less gravity ends up effing up your Oki, and usually you have to like manually time and manually delay even more stuff to get your Oki to work on such like low gravity knockdowns. So you cut your damage and you make your Oki more hard. Don't do it. So if you actually want like good damage and your strong Oki without having to manually time most of it, you do need to learn how to Battou Loop. While H-Kkohaku can get her Oki off of 236C, it does require a very particular dash 2-2A, and you can ask anyone in this game who has to do a dash 2-2A in a combo. It's ass. You don't want to have to dash 2-2A if you don't have to. And while you do have to do it mid-screen in the corner, you can both avoid having to spend meter on 236C and not have to worry about the dash 2-2A by simply just learning Battou Loop. So how does it look? What does it look like? So off the command throw, it looks like this. Oops. I mean, I showed most of the looping, but let me just show the ender. Yep. Yeah, so that's what it looks like off of command throw. And off of strike, it looks like this. Yeah. So it ends in a 2-3-6-A feint knockdown, which you can just 2-2-A afterwards, just buffer it after the 2-3-6-A feint versus most of the casts, and you have a bomb that will detonate shortly after they lose their thrown vulnerability, allowing you to set up their Oki. I already have a video explaining how the Oki works in more detail, so I'm not really going to touch up on it in this video, but that's why you Battou Loop, right? So let's explain how to do it in more detail. So the main part of the Battou Loop and the stuff that you're looping is 236B, A, 5A, 5C. So if we look at 236B-A, the A follow-up to B Battou, we can see on the training tool that it has 10 active frames. What you want to do in order to make the combo work is meet the A follow-up so that the last 3 or so frames, like 3 to 4 frames of the B Battou follow-up are what hits the opponent. Like they fall into the final frames and then they get launched upwards, and then you will recover in time fast enough to either 5A or 5C pick them up. Now, for the purpose of this video, and because I don't want to yap about Batous for 2 hours as opposed to 10 minutes, I'm not going to discuss why you would ever need to pick up with 5C. Just not going to bother. But 5A is typically a lot more lenient, and you don't have to get frame perfect Batous usually in order to connect or continue off of 5A. So if we pause here, you can see that I hit frame 9 of the Battou. So if we go frame by frame, you can see on the thing that the opponent hits the ground frame 9. So I had 8 frames to pick up. So 8 frames before they hit the ground. So that means I had 4 frames leniency on the 5A pickup there. If I did it frame perfectly and I hit frame 10 of the Battou, I would have had 6 frames to pick up the Battou. Pick up afterwards because I recovered so fast. Now I'm going to load a save state that hits it super early, and as you can see here, This is the same situation, but I don't even recover fast enough to get a 5A because, like, look at how like I recover 1 frame and I'm active 1 frame before they hit the ground. So they hit the frame ground before I can even do anything or pick anything up. So off of command throw, and in order to learn Battou Loop, you're going to choose V Scion as your learning character. Please don't choose anyone else. There's a lot of BS that goes into literally every other character, but V Scion is like the easiest character to Battou Loop if you have 0 experience Battou Looping characters, and it's the most transferable between characters. Like, there are characters that are slightly easier to Battou Loop, but they don't traverse across characters as well as it does when you learn on V Scion. So I'm going to knock out a couple of basic misconceptions about Battou Loops. A very common one is, why don't I end with 623B? Because if you watch other like older H-Kkohakus before that didn't like lab as much as I did because they didn't have the tools or they just been playing longer than me, you'll notice that they, instead of doing a 236A ender knockdown, they end their Battou Loops like this. Now, why don't I do that? Okay, so it's pretty much an Oki reason, and it's a little bit of damage. And it also ties into why I don't do 236A Battou Loops, even though they are very easy. Like, they are much more universal and much more easier to do. They both like kind of go in together into why I sort of stopped doing them. Melty Blood has reduced as a mechanic, which lowers your damage by about 30% if they can hit the timing, and it's about 6 or 7-ish frames in order to get it reduced. But Battou Loop is one of the easier combos to reduce in the game. It's not very difficult. Like, it's the very nature of the combo makes it very easy to reduce. And if you do 236A versions, despite the fact that it's super easy to learn and you can transfer it amongst characters, versus people who have been playing the game and know how to reduce it, you're going to suffer a considerable drop off in damage, and it's going to take you a lot more guesses in order to win your Oki than it is if you do the 236B version. Same deal with the 623B ender. In order to get a plus enough knockdown with 623B, in order to have the bomb go off like frame 9 instead of like frame 11 or something, you have to shave off about 200 or so damage, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up as you loop the situation more and more, and it definitely adds up if people are reducing. So it's both 623B ender and 236A, 236B loops are kind of dropped from optimal play because of that reason. So while I suggest you don't even bother with 623B, 623B actually is more important mid-screen, because off of characters that are more normal, if you try to do basic air throw combos, you notice that you can't actually meaty them with 2A. Like, you can see my 2A is hitting, it's meeting a 2A, but it's not on the first frame of their wake up. It's hitting them the 3rd frame of their wake up or something like that. So that's where 623B comes in. Don't use it in Corner Oki. That's just a fact that wasn't fact checked from, it's from PS2. Don't bother using it in Corner Oki. And with regards to 236A Battou Loops, do learn it. If you're new, you're going to want something super reliable that you can fall on when you are in like a pickle and you do not want to drop the combo under any means necessary. So learn how to 236A Battou Loop, but just know that you're going to have to eventually transfer into learning how to properly 3-loop Battou every single character. It's just how it is on this character. I'm sorry, she's difficult. Now, in regards to strike, the easiest way to do a Battou Loop off of strike, and like one of the easier ways to even learn how to Battou Loop, is off of 2A. Like, you use the basic combos theory that you learn from the mid-screen combo, but you just start Battou Looping off of it, and it's really, really easy. However, similar to what I talked about before, eventually you're going to have to add a 3rd loop here, and that's where all hell breaks loose. Because as you can see, my 3rd loop did like an extra 500 damage compared to just doing 2 loops. So you do really want that extra loop, but the last loop, due to the fact that you use 5A, 6A to launch, H moves have a universal mechanic that the 6AA reduces hit stun by 1 frame. So it makes it the final loop, like to get a third loop, much more difficult than it is on when you try to do a third loop off a throw, because when you do a throw, there's no 5A 6A that you do. Like, see, no 5A 6A. So that's why it's so easy to do 3 loops off a throw with decent consistency. But when you're doing it off a strike, you run into much more issues. So first things first, if you're hit confirming, the max amount of 2As in order to get a third loop in the corner off a strike is 2. If you do 3 2As, you run into a breadth of issues. First things first, you get pushed out of the corner unless you rapid fire everything super duper fast, and still you get pushed out significantly out of the corner. So it requires a whole bunch of micro walks, slight delays. It's not worth learning. 2As is a sweet spot between hit confirming into the 2B. Like 2A, 2B is a pretty easy, you can like tell if somebody's gonna hit by that point. Like, you still can run into issues with 2As, but it's a lot easier to make up for it than it is if you do like 3 2As. Plus 3 2As start getting funky with hitting the 21 hits. Like when you get 21 hits, you lose a frame of hit stun. So that another frame of hit stun in addition to the 6AA hit stun. So it becomes more difficult to loop in that situation. And another thing to note about strike is that generally it is much harder to hit confirm into Battou Loop off of strike than it is off of throw, which is one of H-Kkohaku's main issues. So you do have to like eventually like start practicing hit confirming stuff into Battou Loops, because what I showed you right now was like the dream situation. Like someone's not blocking on wake up and you hit confirming 2A into Battou Loop. What's more than likely going to happen is that you counter hit someone. Like if I set the dummy to do something like 5A reversal off of a blocking, yeah. I just have them set to all guard all the time. Okay, so they're gonna block, and you're gonna do stuff like that. So you're gonna have to hit confirm the counter hit 5A into 5C, but that's slightly difficult. And a lot of the time, it's not even going to be a counter hit. You're going to like pick up someone who's fuzzy jumping, because that's a very common strategy people use versus this character. So we're going to have the jump. Where's jump? Where is jump? Jump. So you're going to have to learn how to hit confirm regular ass hits, and it's difficult. Like I know the dummy's going to do that, which is why I can do it here. But if I set it to random, I probably couldn't do it at all. So you're going to have to learn how to hit confirm random ass hits into the Battou Loop. And if you do it like late, you can see that I can Battou Loop off of just a raw 5A. But if I did it early, I'd have to like do a different combo. And that's just hitting with 5A. Like let's say you delayed a 5B or something, or you did a 5B hit confirm, like a 5B charge like that. Like it's a lot harder to hit confirm into Battou Loop off a strike, but you eventually gotta have to make your own tricks in order to get it, because it's super important that you can get that huge damage spike off of both strike and throw. Now, this video is trying to drag on, so I'm going to talk about the very last important part about Battou Loop, which is why you have to practice it at all. So I have a dummy set earlier that I showed, but I'm gonna go back to it. Like let's say this happened. Now look at how plus my opponent is. They are plus 13. That was like egregiously early, right? Like I completely whiffed the 236 a BA on purpose, but generally they're going to be plus 6 or plus 7 and in the air, which, so if you know what that means, you're getting J8 into a full air combo, full stop. It's a full jumping combo versus H-Kkohaku, so you're gonna have to eat a knockdown on a character with not that great defense, and it's ass. So what happens if you do it too late? Now, too late is the bigger issue typically, because okay, like too early usually shows up when you're trying to get, when you're getting like the frame perfect version, like when you're trying to do like the combos that require you to hit on frame 10. You're a beginner, you don't need to worry about that yet, but I'm just explaining that, so just so you know what's happening when the air tech, like let's say you do it too early and you're new and you're like, why did I get punished? Now you know. But the version that's going to happen to you more often, I also set a dummy for it, I believe. Gotta set this off before it messes with the dummy. I think it's on this site. Yeah, so this is too late. So you're gonna see that I'm, again, earlier I'm only +1 here. So if I try to like link a 5A, like, if I was looking at my own character, like if you look at H-Kkohaku herself, you're going to realize very quickly that you're not going to recover in time, because both Kohaku's recovering too slow and they're too close to the ground. So then you could like just wait on the ground or something. But if you're but if you're not looking at H-Kkohaku and instead visually tracking the Scion who's falling, what's happening is you're going to like autopilot a 5C, because you're going to press 5A, expect like based on where they're falling. And what happens is now you're putting your life in your opponent's hands, because your 5C is going to come out. If they forward tech, I'm going to set the dummy to do that real quick. If they forward tech, your 5C is not going to autocorrect usually. So they just hit you and you're in the corner. They're +22. Hell breaks loose on Earth, essentially. That's if they forward tech though. However, if you're looking at your character, you're going to realize very quickly that this is what happens instead. Like you do a 2A into a 5C. Like the 5C won't come out if you're like doing it super fast, but you'll like either do like a 2A whiff or a 5A whiff, and then the 5C will autocorrect. So if you're new, it's more important to practice looking at H-Kkohaku. If you're experienced, you're going to learn to look at the opponent, and then you're just going to have different issues based on what happens essentially. Like if you get the 5C to auto track because you're looking at them, or you're doing the 5A whiff, it doesn't really matter if you do it too late. Like too early is like the big one, and too early as a new player is pretty easy to avoid. But I'm just explaining that if you drop Battou Loop combos in the corner, it's not a fun time. You can typically get punished out of almost every single drop, unless you drop on purpose and you just like, if this happens and you just wait, then it's like super easy to just punish them on reaction to the attack, or at least force them to do nothing. Yeah. So that's it for Battou Loops. This is just a yapping video on how to do Battou Loops. I'll probably make a more edited and down version of this in the future, but as for now, that's it.